Back from a East Coast tour, surviving the elements, surviving the weather, surviving the various smells in the rental truck that we had.
Surviving each other.
So the three of us are here. Mateo and Eric are dead. So
yeah, we lost them along the way. They did not survive the trip. Casualties were expected. Yeah.
Condolences to their family, and also, man, thank you to everyone who came out. That goes without saying, but
yeah, thank you all. You all made the tour really special.
The thing is we would need like a 4-hour show to recap the tour.
Yeah.
So Shawn and I were talking like we'll just have to do some other recap show.
Yeah, after this show, I have a time slot I want to run by you, Jim, to talk about.
Yeah, so, but dude, I got my third eye. Shout out to Steve and Trish at Third Eye Comics.
I should have worn mine. I should have worn
mine. So, but we will say OAX rocked. We did that. Thank you, everybody. We did Blackbird Comics and Coffee Shop in Orlando. Thank you to them.
Dude, thank you.
Shelton,
Candace and Dave were awesome.
Candace and Dave. Shelton and his crew at Heroes Aren't Hard to Find in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Carla Winslow, thank you. Absolutely.
Our boy Steve and Trish, like I mentioned, at Third Eye in Annapolis.
Steve and Trish, you rock.
They have a killer operation going on.
And the whole staff. The whole staff.
And then somehow we wound up in the streets of New York City at Forbidden Planet.
That was a
thank you to our boy Jeff and his crew. But that was crazy because Jamie's never been to New York, so like we're just in the streets of New York City for like one day eating pizza, and then
we packed a lot into that one.
When I stepped out of what were you saying, Jamie?
I was just going to say we packed a lot into that one day. For my one day in New York City, that was a pretty incredible day.
Oh my God, dude. Yeah. It wasn't even a day. We were in New York for what, 5 hours? Like it wasn't even a day.
But it was a good 5 hours, is what I'm saying.
Hey, Jamie, you got to experience New York pizza, New York coffee, a signing, and a dinner with Klaus Janson and Paul Pope and Monty Keene.
Exactly. It was insane.
I mean,
yeah,
it still feels like a fever dream. I've not slept enough. I'm still not quite sure that happened, but
it's what we now call this effect the Inkpulp effect.
Yeah,
magic shit just happens.
That's it.
Shout out to everybody in the chat. Chris Pierce is here. Comic Tropes. West Coast Dave is here. Dave? Andrew Law Art says rest in peace to Mateo and Eric. I agree with you.
Rest in peace.
We will be replacing them though on the next tour with Jason Shawn Alexander and Daniel Warren Johnson.
There you go. All right, that sounds good. Eli Schwab in the building. What's
Eli?
Up?
Eli.
What up? Dude, we have two legends on the show tonight.
Yes, we do.
I'm super excited about.
We do.
Steve Bissette, our boy Jim Rugg. Before we bring them on, could we do a little like business stuff, a little Kickstarter promo stuff?
Let's do it. Here we go.
Speaking of Eli Schwab, this is a Kickstarter that just launched for him. He sent this to me today. Ghost Agents and Death Ray #1. This is, I'll be totally honest, everyone sent me their Kickstarters today, and I just had a chance to like go through them very quickly. So when you guys get a chance, Jamie, can you do links to these?
This one's already in the chat. We did this one.
Okay. So this looks totally badass, man. They even have like a spicy adults only cover. I like that.
Yeah, this is awesome.
Eli, if you want, you can give us a description in the chat, but this project looks awesome, man. Look at that.
Yeah.
Those pages look great.
Yeah, that's great.
Beautiful, man. Support Eli and Cosmic Lion, guys. Looks awesome.
Yeah, that looks awesome.
Really
good.
Next one is
Chris Pierce is asking how the tattoos are healing up. Mine's healing up great.
Super good, man.
I assume they're all great.
Eddie's a professional.
Yeah. Ooh, what's this one?
Creature Features Volume 2. My old school homeboy, Jay Photos. I knew him when I lived in Arizona in the late 90s. Jay worked at are you yawning on camera, Shawn?
Dude.
You can't.
No, I'm not.
You can't yawn during the live stream. Okay. This looks awesome though. Jay sent this to me today. Jay, I've known him since he worked at McFarlane Productions. And he's always making awesome stuff. Comics, photography, crazy things. This project looks awesome. Check it out.
Yeah, that looks dope.
Support. That cover is great.
Yeah, the link's in the chat. By the way, also Eli sent us a quick description of this one.
It's a flip book.
Oh, sweet.
And Ken Landgraf is in there too. Okay, that's awesome.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
So check that out.
Ooh, badass. This is nice. This is
Erwin
nice.
Papa, our homeboy. We always will promote and show love to Erwin Papa and the Long Beach Ink and Drink crew.
Long Beach boys.
The angriest warrior, angrier than ever. And wait, go back up a little. Angrier than ever and warrior than ever. Okay. This looks badass, man.
It does.
This is issue 1 of Erwin. If you're here, like, let us know what's going on with this. I feel dude, look at that headbutt.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Fantastic.
Dude, that's fantastic.
Erwin is also illustrating in Andrew McLean's new Death Bite Forever comic that Image is putting out.
Nice.
So we just saw Andrew in Charlotte and had dinner with him. He's doing good.
Yeah. Andrew's great.
Always good to see him. That's it on the Kickstarters.
That is everything.
Can I show 3 things real quick?
Go for it, man. Go for it.
Guys, I'm rocking covers for Vault Comics, the new Barbaric series. This is issue 2.
So dope. That is so dope.
Thanks, man. Mike Spicer coloring this, knocking it out of the park. This is issue 2, Barbaric, The Long Death. This just came out a week ago, I believe. So you can still score this at your local comic shop. Next one is, speaking of Andrew McLean, this is a variant cover for issue 2 of Death Fight Forever, out this month, out March 25th. Image Comics, also Mike Spicer on the colors. Thank you, Mike.
Nice. Love it.
And the last thing is a little teaser. This is an interior page from
snap.
Little teaser. Peach Momoko has a new miniseries at Marvel called Psi Dimensional Rivals. I'm in issue 4 with her and Bengal, and this comes out next month in April. And guess what? Mike Spicer on colors. Spicer on colors.
Rocking it.
Me and Mike Spicer, I think we're going places.
I think you are too. You might have a career in this together.
We're gonna he's like, Jim, as long as you get me endless supplies of money, muscle cars, and root beer.
I thought it was Topo Chico.
What is that?
Topo Chico.
Oh, it's a flavored.
Oh, it's the grapefruit. I'm sorry, it's the grapefruit Topo Chico.
Yeah, okay.
I went extra bougie today.
Nice. Are you we should have talked about this before, but are you drawing tonight?
I am. In fact,
okay.
Let me show you. Let me show you what's going to happen tonight as I switch my camera. Why is it not working? Oh, do I get
that was a really cool drawing right there, Shawn. That was you drew that camera beautifully.
I got a brush and I got a blank page and I don't have a pencil. Guess what?
What?
Yep.
Wait, and I actually penciled something out. So we're doing an
I-
opposite. We're doing.
I've been inspired by you, Jim. I need to step up my game.
I'm doing a thing that I hopefully Steve Bissette will not be offended by. It's a dinosaur themed collage. That's all I'm gonna say about it.
Okay.
So
So let's bring them in and let's get busy.
let's do it. Jim
Here we
Rugg
go.
and Stephen Bissette.
Welcome, guys.
Greetings.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thanks.
Why
Thank you
would
for
I be
joining us. guys.
offended at a dinosaur collage? That sounds perfect. That sounds great.
Well, Steve, I don't know how nuts this is gonna get. Sometimes
Nuts is good. The more nuts, the better.
sometimes I get
Don't
weird with it.
misinterpret what I
But
said.
I've seen your body of work, so I know like weird is fine.
But you've not
Like,
seen my
weird.
body. Okay, I won't do that anymore.
It's a different show. How are you guys doing?
Good.
Good. Honored to be here. I'm kind of recovering from some travel and a trip as well, but nothing like what you guys have been doing. So, and
Yeah, we won't do another tour until next year. Like,
I won't do another tour till my next lifetime. So
yeah.
this is my tour. So
It was great, and we learned a lot by spending time with retailers.
you
know,
learn a lot. Yeah, John Toddleman and I were doing, I'm not exaggerating, we were doing a comic shop or a convention every other weekend from about 1983 until about 1988.
Wow.
And
Damn.
all that was bankrolled by the conventions or the shop owners. You know, we didn't have any money, and DC
Right.
sure wasn't schlepping us around. And it was a real education. You know, every retailer we spent time with, and I'm really glad you guys got to go to Shelton Drum's Heroes shop, because Shelton was fantastic. I
Yeah.
still have the Chinese dinner fortunes from Shelton taking us out to the restaurant before we went to the airport.
That's amazing. Well,
Yeah,
you told us,
and
you
Jim,
told
I'm
us you
not going to
never.
find those fortunes for the Tyrant book, in case you're going to ask me to dig them out.
You told us before we started recording that you never throw anything away. So your studio must be a treasure trove, man, of just
Something
crazy stuff. Yeah.
This is, I'm talking to you all from my writing studio and library, which is a basement setup. And my drawing studio is in another part of the house altogether.
Right.
And my drawing studio, no computers, no distractions. It's just my research material, art tools, and CDs. I
nice.
listen
Okay.
to a lot of music when I draw. So
That's yeah. Music is the main
That's
fuel
great.
for my stuff as well. I'm just
I feel like I'm letting folks down by not drawing, but I'm not drawing.
No. Do your thing.
so
I
you
am going to
guys
draw, and I'm going to switch my camera now awkwardly. So bear with me.
Jim's going to draw on the ceiling above the fan.
We've been waiting for this, Jim. Your new experimental style. This is going to be very exciting. So, you guys are making the rounds right now on the gorgeous new Tyrant collected artist edition book. There's 2 books coming out through Kickstarter. The Kickstarter pre-launch page is up, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know that because I just signed up for it. Like, two days ago.
And I understand from Chris Stevens and Jim Rugg that we just broke 1,500, folks being on there today, which I'm told is a good thing.
Wow, that's
Nice. Congrats,
incredible.
man.
Yeah,
Congrats.
that's great.
The link to the
Yeah.
Kickstarter is in the description, but I'm also putting it in the chat right now if anyone wants to check it out.
Thank you, Jamie.
Thank you. Yeah, the sweet spot I think is usually like if you can break 1,000 people onto signing up for the pre-launch, that's a good space to be in,
It's all new to me. I know you guys have done crowdfunding, and I know that Jim has, but I've, during my 15 years teaching at the Center for Cartoon Studies, I secondhand, watched a lot of our alum, a lot of our students, and a number of our faculty use crowdfunding. So I've got some sense of how it works and how the different platforms work, some sense of what the risks are as well as the benefits. But I have to say, after decades of working with the direct sale market, crowdfunding is an incredibly powerful tool for putting new work together and getting it out there. And, within a concentrated period of time, condensing what used to take us, no exaggeration, months to accomplish.
Oh, yeah.
Just compressing the whole process, including the packaging, the promotion, the direct contact with your end users, your readers, your potential readers. I'm really looking forward to this experience.
Steve, I wanted to ask you, like, did you get inspiration from Eastman and Laird, seeing them doing their thing with Mirage and then do Spider Baby? And how long did Spider Baby graphics?
Still going, man. Still
Yeah.
going. We
Okay.
launched it in 1987. The first issue of Taboo was the beginning of Spider Baby graphics and publications. Kevin and Peter were friends. They were a great inspiration, and I got to spend a fair amount of time at Mirage Studios. I got to know all the Mirage guys during the heyday and during the craziness. Man, they went through crazy times with all that.
Oh yeah.
But prior to that, my real wellspring were the underground comics, which in a lot of ways, even though there were publishers more than there were self-publishers, Last Gas, Ripoff Press, San Francisco Comics Company, and so on. That was my first exposure and understanding of artists owning their own work. And that predated, my getting into the comics industry. And it was really the underground scene. So, meeting Kevin and Peter in the wake of a few years of Dave Sim and Gerhardt coming into the arena, and really Dave Sim really hammered on me for years, like, you should be self-publishing, right? Why are you allowing the companies to own everything?
Right.
And I think I was ready for and much more attuned to learning all I could from watching what Kevin and Peter and the Mirage Studio guys were dealing with, because of the time I'd already spent with Dave Sim and Gerhardt. I used to go up and visit them in Kitchener minimum of once a year, for a few days to a week. And if you visited Dave and Gerhardt, you worked, like studio time was studio time. So you better have work with you. And
That's awesome.
So, between them and Kevin and Peter, and then once the Spirit of Independence tour hit in the early to mid 90s, that's where I met Paul Pope and Jeff and Vijaya Smith. Got to spend time with people that I had corresponded with or met long distance, like Don Simpson and others. It was a real steep and intense learning curve of, of how self-publishing worked and how it didn't work,
Right.
But it definitely was critical that I knew Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman and got to know the guys at Mirage and actually work with the guys with Mirage off and on. It was really, it was inspiring, and it was also a real crash course in the dangers of success.
Yeah.
Boy, they went through a lot of meat grinders, let me tell you.
Oh, I bet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just quickly, guys, I wanted to say we got a $20 super chat from West Coast Dave. He said, much love to Jim and Steve for being guests on Direct Edition this week. Two of my favorite guests. Love you too, Shawn and Fid.
Nice.
Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, everybody check out West Coast Dave's show and the interview with our guests tonight. You guys are really doing the whole I mean, you're making the rounds for the book. Hopefully we don't ask the same questions that everyone else has asked. So bear with us.
Jim, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think we've had the same conversation twice yet. So
No, we haven't. It's been fantastic. You know, anytime I do anything, I feel like there's unintended or unexpected surprises along the way, and one of them has been just how enjoyable it is to go on a podcast tour with Steve Bissette. It's been amazing. But the conversations have varied quite a bit from show to show, and I've learned a lot. And yeah, it's been an interesting experience. Like, you guys are coming off of a real brick and mortar tour, and I feel like with Tyrant, we've kind of been doing that tour, but just virtually, and it's been great so far.
yeah, it really has. And Jim, it's always an honor to be on with you. So I've learned a great deal. I noticed somebody in the chat asking if I was part of the blacklist group. When you say blacklist group, are you referring to what led to the Creator Bill of Rights? Is that what you're referencing?
While we're on
I
the
would
topic
love
of
to hear about
questions,
that.
Question out to comic tropes.
while we're on the topic of questions, we've had a few people asking what kind of pen Jim Rugg is using.
Oh boy, that's a good question. It's a cheap calligraphy marker. It has basically a chisel tip kind of wide on one end, as well as a smaller one on the other.
Wow.
So
I used to use those for lettering.
yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, Jim, you turned me on to drawing with these things, some kind of calligraphy tip, and I enjoy them a lot. I was going to do a ballpoint pen tonight, but I wasn't sure how long we had, and that's kind of a lengthy process. And I thought this would probably result in a cooler look anyway on camera. So
Looks
yeah, I do
great.
a lot with this. It's pretty fun.
Okay,
That's
I got
awesome, man.
clarification there. They were talking about the informal breakfast club that Eastman Laird and Rick Veach were part of. Yeah, I was part of that. In fact, that whole, a lot of that evolved out of ongoing long-term conversations about self-publishing and working as freelancers within what the comic book marketplace was at that time in the late 80s and early to mid 90s. And I was part of that clique, if you will. And we used to get together because Rick and I live in Vermont, and at the time Peter and Kevin were in the Northampton, Massachusetts area. I was about an hour away from them, and it was really easy to make time in any given week to go down and spend part of a day down there. And that was really vital, those conversations. They started informally, but they grew into a more formal gathering. If memory serves, Dave Sims sponsored 2 get-togethers, one in Canada, in Toronto, if I'm remembering correctly, and one in Massachusetts that Dave, rented a hotel and brought a bunch of us in. And Kevin and Peter started sponsoring similar gatherings in the Massachusetts area. And a lot grew out of that. That was really an important time in terms of figuring out what our rights were, figuring out what we commonly signed away, figuring out what the cultural differences were. Dave, Sim, and Gerhardt being in Canada, they thought healthcare was a right that cartoonists had, and we were like, hey, in America, as they say at the beginning of Blood Simple, you're on your own. So it was also educational in that regard, and just seeing where some basic aspects of how do you retain your dignity, working in the comic book field, and how do you make sure that you're benefiting to the maximum from the work that you're able to complete and get out there. Because we were part of a long line of generation after generation of cartoonists who worked their asses off and ended up with nothing to show for it as they got older. And we didn't want to go down that road. We wanted to figure out a way to make our way and also make our work, make the kind of work that was important to us and make the kind of work that we thought others would be interested in reading. And you're juggling a lot of balls, both creatively and as business people. You've got to learn the business whether you want to or not. You end up learning the business by getting screwed if you're not paying attention to how the business works. You're gonna learn it one way or the other.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would encourage everybody listening to this, if you're interested in, making comics or creator rights or anything, go find that Creator Bill of Rights. It's an amazing, it's an amazing document. We had covered it on Kayfabe a few years ago, and it was my first time looking at it since, I don't know, sometime in the 90s or something. And I was really struck by all of it. I think it's still super relevant. I wish we had more conversations about the topics that you guys covered, Steve. And I would just encourage everybody, like, it's a great thing to look at and think about. Some of the stuff, it feels a little bit more like a thought exercise in some ways, but it's still totally relevant to today. And in fact, we probably have more freedom to negotiate all the items that are in there than ever. So I wish creators were more aware of that Creator Bill of Rights and that it was more a part of the conversation today.
Part of the problem is we're sort of groomed as creative people to think that we're lower class citizens. That there's always the great myth about professionalism, that part of professionalism, pardon my French, is eating a shit sandwich and liking it.
Right.
And,
right.
that's part of what has held comics back as a medium, is that generation after generation, we're really in the grip of and in the thrall of a system that had codified and normalized behavior that just shouldn't exist, that we shouldn't be taking for granted at all. I'm in no way exaggerating that it took years for Dave Sim, in long phone conversations and a number of face-to-face meetings, to hammer that conditioning out of us, because
right.
we'd really been trained to accept it. Like, this is how it is. This is how it's always been. This is how it should be. And Dave was going, no. That's not at all how it should be. That's just, how you've been groomed to work on the plantation, if you will. That document, Jim, is more relevant today than it was when we all labored on it. I've seen the worst contracts of my life circulating right now in the field. On the one hand, we're in one of the best times to be working in comics, right? Self-publishing, crowdfunding. There's fewer gatekeepers out there. You guys are literally projecting your drawings that you're doing right now on the screen. And that's how a lot of creators are doing comics these days. It's going right from their drawing board or their tablet to their end readers. But, we worked really hard to try to improve the conditions at what were called at the time the mainstream publishers, Marvel and DC, and they've retrenched. It's gotten worse. The contracts are worse than they were in the 80s and 90s. The pay has gone down. I'm amazed sometimes when I'm approached by publishers where they're offering less than I get for a sketch for work for hire covers and so on. And it's just like, well, why would I do this? I think the Creator Bill of Rights is more relevant now than it used to be, in part because we're in such a corporate dominated pop culture. And a lot of fans take the presumption that the companies are in the right, that if you're paid once, that's it. That's all you should be doing.
Right.
And that stuff, I can't say it astonishes me anymore, because I see it as a more and more frequent attitude out there. We're benefiting still from the work we did on Swamp Thing. Every quarter, John Toddleben, Rick Veitch, and I earn royalties from our work being in print. That's how it should be. That's how it should be. And in the case of self-published work, especially with what Rick Veitch is doing and so on, that income goes directly to Rick every month from the print on demand at Amazon, and others use Ingram Spark. So there's the Swamp Thing annual there on the screen I'm seeing.
Steve, this book, I got this when I was a kid. This book freaked me out because I didn't know what I was getting into. You know, I was like looking for the new. No offense to you guys, but I was
No,
looking
no,
for
no.
the new
That's what we
issue.
were wanted to do.
I was like looking for the new issue of, you know, Spider-Man or Batman, and I was like, well, I'll just try this. I'll just get this, and this blew my mind when I was a kid. Like the level of depth and creepiness and psychedelic, you know, wonderment that is happening in this. Can you? I know this is a big question, but like, what was it like working with Alan Moore, and did you guys have the freedom to kind of cut loose and do your thing on this kind of stuff?
Okay, let me talk about that. I'll also mention, yes, I'm a fan of Gone. For those who are mentioning the terrific manga Gone on the chat.
Oh yeah.
Work on Swamp Thing was phenomenal, Jim. You know, sometimes you luck into being in the right place at the right time with the right people, and that's really what happened with Swamp Thing. I mean, John Toddleben, Rick Veitch, and I had become friends at the Joe Kubert School. Rick and I met the first day, you know, that we were at the Kubert School, and right from that moment on, Rick and I had bonded, and we worked together creatively whenever we could, especially in those early few years. John Toddleben joined us the next year. He was in the next wave of students who came in, and we bonded with John immediately. But it took a few years before we were on Swamp Thing, which we were only involved with because our Kubert School classmate and fellow alum, Tom Yates, was the artist on Saga of the Swamp Thing right from the first issue in 1982. And, you know, Tom is not a fan of horror comics. Tom is devoted to adventure comics. He took on Swamp Thing with some reluctance. Len Wein really, I mean, Tom recently spelled it out in one of the text pieces he wrote for DC. Len Wein pretty much said, we're only going to bring Swamp Thing back if you draw it. And during the time Tom was working on the book, each one of us, Rick Veitch, John Toddleben, John quite a bit, and myself, pitched in to help Tom on some of the issues. And once Tom decided he was going to leave, he was the one who said to Toddleben and I, hey, you guys should try out for this. I'm going to, you know, bring you up to Len as a proposed team. And that's how we got it. So John and I stepping in, we already had a chemistry. We had lived together for a couple of years after Kubert School. Tom, Rick, and I shared a house in walking distance of the Kubert School for a time after we had graduated. So we had jammed on individual drawings. John and I found our groove really quickly. Marty Pasco was the writer when we were first on the book. And as you're flipping through these pages, Jim, you know, this is when we were working with Alan Moore, and we found this amazing kindred spirit in Alan. We all had wanted to do the same thing with the character. And that was bizarre when I look back at it. Like, how rare is that? And Alan, script by script, was elevating what was possible in comics. Jim Rugg has already heard me talk about this in a prior podcast. Rick Veitch and I had been talking since we'd met in the fall of 1976 about what we thought was possible in comics, but we weren't good enough writers to do it. We tried and we tried and we tried with our own work together and separately. But it was when that first Alan Moore script was in my hand for the anatomy lesson, Swamp Thing number 21.
Oh, classic. Yeah, classic.
And I just went, you know, I called Rick immediately on the phone after reading the script saying, Rick, come down here. You have to read this, because right there in the 22 pages or 23 pages of story, Alan did it. It was all there. What Rick and I have been talking about and striving for was in Alan's script. So by the time I was working on this annual, I penciled this annual, we were really in the groove, you know. This annual,
you can tell.
Oh, we were just, you know, and we didn't have time to be precious about it, you know. Like, I was penciling this stuff as fast as I could, and I was slow. It took me 5 weeks to pencil a monthly comic. Do the math. I was always behind, you know.
This is crazy, man. I love that splash page. You and John as a team together, like how excited were you to have him?
Oh, it was incredible.
Inking your work. And what was he doing? Would you say finishes over your work, or was it?
It was inking. Like, I mean, I knew I had to. I had always worked before, either doing full art myself, right, pencils and inks, or when I jammed with Rick Veitch, we jammed. Like, we would swap pages back and forth. It was very organic. We both did pencils, inks, colors together. Working on Swamp Thing, I had to teach myself how to pencil, because you're entering the factory lineup, if you will, right? The way comics were put together at that time at the mainstream publishers was, it was like assembling a Toyota vehicle on an assembly line. The penciler was only supposed to take the script and make pencil pages. The inker was only supposed to be inking. And John and I were already circumventing that. Like, as soon as we got a script, right from the first issue we did together, I asked Len Wein, who was the editor up until issue 25 when Karen Berger took over. I asked Len, can you FedEx a copy of the script to John so that he and I are seeing the same script at the same time? Because John and I would get on the phone and talk through what we were thinking. And that way I had a pretty good idea about where John wanted to go. And John would have a really clear idea of where I was planning on going with the pencils. The basic storytelling and page design was on my shoulders as penciler. My job was to take Alan's script and translated it into a penciled page.
Got it.
But I knew John's work intimately by then. And like I mentioned a few moments ago, he and I had jammed on individual drawings. John was a classically trained painter and artist. Like, he understood working with glazes and special effects. I like working with a kid finish, with a Bristol board that has a tooth to it, right? Cold press. If John wanted a portion of the page or an entire panel to be slick, like hot press, he would lay layers of Elmer's glue and let it dry. And when it had dried completely, he had a slick paper surface to ink over. And, so John, and, we worked with overlays, Mylar overlays. If you look at that annual, Jim, that you were sharing with us, there are sequences in there like that Spectre splash page with the Spectre's face, where some of those color overlays were hand-drawn by John on a separate sheet of Mylar. And we would put instructional notes for Tatiana Wood as to what we wanted done. Okay, so those purples and so on that are mixed in there, the violets and purples, that's where Tatiana, who, by the way, just passed away this past week. She just passed away within a few days of being 100 years old. Tatiana understood what we wanted to do, and we would put color notes on the margins of the page for Tatiana in ink, which the production department would white out so that you didn't see them in print. And if we had a particular color scheme in mind, we would put suggestions or instructions there for Tatiana. But she was a genius artist with color, and we were really blessed to have Tatiana, on the book as part of our team.
Yeah, rest in peace to her. That's crazy that she just missed her birthday, right? I'm told it was within days. Wow,
more power to her. And Tatiana was amazing. I got to meet her one time. And it was pretty funny the way I met her. As I said earlier, I was always slow, and I was also raising two kids. My first wife, Marlene, and I had a daughter, Maya, who's still very much with us, and our son, Danny, who's also still very much with us. And during the work days when Marlene was at work, I was the stay-at-home dad. And the point in all this is I was slow. I would usually work in my studio after the kids were to bed. So I was putting in the bulk of my hours in the wee hours of the night and early morning. And then when the kids napped, if they napped, I could, steal another hour or two in there. I was always behind. And Karen Berger made a point, one of the trips that John Tottleman and I took into New York, we were delivering pages and touching base with Karen. She invited Tatiana Wood up to the office without telling us. And Tatiana had the presence. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the 1941 Universal film, The Wolfman.
Yes,
of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tatiana looked and talked like the gypsy. in that film.
Oh,
Bela
okay.
Lugosi's mother in that film.
Yeah.
But she wasn't as old as that at the time, but she definitely had this gypsy ambiance to her. And Karen's intent was clear very quickly. Karen brings us into the office. Tatiana's standing there. She's looking at us, you know, with eagle eyes. And Karen goes, Tatiana, this is Steve and John. And Tatiana like narrows her eyes and she goes, which one of you is the slow one?
Oh.
And John and Karen, without saying anything, look at me. And Tatiana looked me right in the eye and she goes, good for you.
Oh, damn.
That's not what Karen Berger wanted to have happen, right?
Right.
I think she was planning on, you know, Tatiana beating some sense into me or something. But Tatiana loved working on Swamp Thing, and she really appreciated what we were putting into the book and reciprocated it in spades. You know, she brought our work to another whole level with her colors.
Yeah. What a killer lineup, man. Just the whole team, you know.
Amazing.
Just before we get too far away from it, guys, we got a couple of super chats, but I didn't want to interrupt you guys. We got a $20 super chat from Stylish Nerd. Said, "What's up, guys? Sorry I'm late to the party. The wife and I had so much fun. Had so much fun at OAX. Shawn, thank you for the art and the badass tattoo. Jim and Jamie, great meeting you guys. Also, it's my wife and I's 1 year anniversary tonight.
Happy anniversary to you two.
Congratulations.
Awesome people.
Hell yeah.
Happy anniversary. We also had a $10 super chat from Sad Boy who said, want to give a shout out to that badass book Stephen wrote about the Brood. Only 200 pages in so far, but it's a fun read. Stoked for Tyrant.
That Brood book is 700 pages, folks.
What is that? What is that book?
I do a lot of writing about film and comics history, and I was approached by a United Kingdom editor, Neil Snowden, who also works with Arrow, the Blu-ray 4K label Arrow. In fact, Neil just put out a terrific box set of John Borman's film Excalibur from the 1980s.
Oh, I love that.
Sure.
One.
So Neil had instituted an imprint called Electric Dreamhouse, and he was putting together midnight movie monographs, and they're still ongoing. A number of my friends have written recent ones. My good friend Tim Lucas recently did a midnight movie monograph for them on Succubus, the Jess Franco film. And another friend of mine, Graham Ray, shout out to Graham in Scotland, is delivering a book on Necromantic, the infamous film Necromantic from Germany. So Neil approached me and he asked if I'd be willing to do a midnight movie monograph, and he had one movie in mind, and I said I'd be happy to do that, but I'd really like to write about The Brood because it's my favorite David Cronenberg film, and I think it's really underrated. It rarely got much attention at that time. And it took me 2.5 years. Neil was a terrific editor to work with. He encouraged me he made the mistake of encouraging me to do more. And he ended up with a 700-page hardcover book. It was published by PS Publications. And I'm really proud of it. I really dug deep. It's not just about that one film. It's about, I tried to cover the whole of David Cronenberg's career and the entire pop cultural and cultural context that led to that 1979 classic horror film being made, and everything that followed, what happened with it being released and so on. Because, of course, being a Cronenberg film, it was pretty much critically reviled when it first came out.
Oh, sure.
Really important film to me. So I'm glad there's somebody out there reading it. It's amazing you put work out there and you never know if anybody's going to notice, but that's cool.
Now, Steve, I'm a scanners guy. I love
scanners. I love scanners too.
What's your ranking on scanners?
I love scanners. I saw it when it first, I saw all the Cronenberg films as they first came out. I think the only one I had to catch up on was They Came From Within, Shivers, played in America as They Came From Within. I saw that a couple of years after it was originally out. I love scanners, and when it came out in 1980-81, it was, no pun intended, a real mind blower. I went with two of my very good friends, one of whom during the climactic siege between the two Scanner brothers, as their bodies are being ripped apart by psychic energy. One of my friends shouted aloud in the theater, "Thanks a lot, Bissette," Scanners was Cronenberg's breakthrough film. That was the first mainstream hit he had. Scanners made a lot of money when it came out, and it was the right film at the right time. I feel in terms of Cronenberg's body of work, it's like Cronenberg light. I mean, it's a really entertaining science fiction horror film, but it really had teeth, and it played really strong in the theater. It's a film I've gone back to a number of times. Of course, I revisited it when I was working on the Brood book. And more recently, about a year and a half ago, Tim Lucas and I got together and did a video bonus feature for a German 4K Blu-ray release of the Scanners. And we got to revisit it and talk about it anew. I think it really holds up. And one of the things I love about it is Patrick McGoohan in the film. I was what? 13 when The Prisoner first played on American television, and had grown up earlier with Danger Man, which played in America on syndicated TV as Secret Agent. So Patrick McGoohan was a real staple in my viewing diet, and his role in Scanners is terrific. And Michael Ironside as the evil brother Revok is
so good,
force of nature in that film. I mean,
and also Steve, greatest head explosion ever in a movie.
Oh yeah, it's still out there as a meme. When you least expect it, it pops up somewhere. So amazing stuff. And I do love Videodrome, and I got to see Shrouds, his latest feature film, at a film festival at the Green Mountain Film Festival in Montpelier, Vermont, before it had opened theatrically. And I love Shrouds. I'm a diehard Cronenberg fan, and now I've been really enjoying the work of his daughter. Caitlin had a terrific film out about 2 years ago called Humane. I guess it's finally coming out on disc later this spring. And his son's work, especially the film Possessor, is just amazing. If you have not been checking out the spawn of Cronenberg's work, his daughter and his son's work, check out their films. It's amazing work. It really is.
The kids are at it. Jim, I wanted to ask you, man, shifting gears, like, I don't know the answer to this, but how did you get involved in this project? Because you're designing the new book, the Tyrant Deluxe Kickstarter book.
Yeah, I like to think that I manifested this thing. We did an episode on Kayfabe about Tyrant.
I remember, yeah.
And Chris Stevens, who is the publisher of Lighthouse, who's actually publishing the book, I've known him forever, and we've often talked about our mutual admiration of Steve's work, and especially of Tyrant. And I think he had been talking to Steve about this project for a while, and it kind of, it came from Chris Stevens as far as my involvement. And whenever I heard it was a possibility, it was a no-brainer. I consider Steve one of the masters of comics art, and I consider Tyrant his masterpiece. So the ability to have any involvement at all, I jumped at the chance whenever it kind of crossed my desk.
That's awesome, man.
I asked Chris if he could approach Jim. So I humbly bow to you, Jim. I'm a big fan of Jim's work, his comics work, his zines, and Jim, your design work is impeccable. And when it took Chris quite a while, it was a courtship, let's put it that way, because I had a lot of reasons to not want to do Tyrant. And when I came around and really started to entertain the idea, it was because of that Kayfabe episode that Jim and Ed did, where they went through every page of every issue of Tyrant, the 4 issues that exist. And that was another reason I asked for you, Jim, to be designer in the book, because I knew you loved the material. I had this love letter from you two that I could go back and revisit anytime I needed a little ego boo when I was feeling down. So,
nice.
I also felt like, I've got a few artist editions in my library, only 2 or 3, And I was curious to see what you were going to do with the work. Somebody asked in the chat what it feels like to turn over Tyrant to Chris and Jim. And yeah, I did everything on Tyrant back in the 90s. I mean, it was my baby. I wrote, I drew, I lettered. By the third issue, I was even doing all the typesetting. I had been taught typesetting by my friend Alan Goldstein, who essentially typeset the first 2 issues. And the work's done. So it's no headache turning it all over to you, Jim. You know, I feel like I did my part, and I feel very comfortable just going here. Let's see what you do with it. And if somebody else is looking forward to the book more than me, I don't know who that person is, because I'm living for the day these are in my hands to see what you're going to do with them. And I know you're honoring the work, and that's important too. When we were doing, we were doing self-publishing in the 90s, we were working with the cheapest, newsprint that we could afford. We were working with a pretty terrific printer, Kim Prenny at Prenny Print and Litho, but we were working within the parameters of a pretty stringent business model. Get the work done, get it out in black and white. Don't go with fancy covers. We were working with real skeleton crew techniques and with the bare bones of what was possible given the technology of printing and production at that time. I was physically doing all the paste ups, right? Everything I'd learned in the paste up of mechanicals class from Kelly Harris at the Joe Kubert School in my first year, I was putting that to work every week on pulling together Tyrant, particularly the back pages.
Wow.
So turning it over to you, Jim, is like, thank God.
Yeah.
And I know the tools that you have at your fingertips now with the digital media, which was unimaginable in the mid-90s when we were doing this work. I mean, we were working right on the cusp of the digital era beginning to alter how comics were being produced and put together. We were right at the cusp of that transition. So
amazing.
It's amazing. It's
That's
crazy.
amazing. Jim, that looks incredible.
We got Swamp Thing, the Dinosaur, Steve Bissette, and Barney.
For a number of years after I retired from the American comic scene, I worked in the video rental and retail market from about 1998 to spring of 2005. And we used to have to go to the trade shows, the video trade shows every year, where the studios and the distributors would all come together. There were small trade shows in Atlantic City, and the big annual show was in Las Vegas every July. And at one of those shows, there was a performer in a green Barney suit rather than a purple Barney suit, and he was carrying a shamrock, a bottle of beer, and he had a leprechaun hat on, and he was Blarney the dinosaur.
Wow. Okay. And was he getting drunk and out of control?
Well, he was promoting his title, so he was in good control, but he was pretty funny, let me tell you. It definitely added some spice to that particular trade show.
Wow, man.
I will say we lost Jim Rugg there. I'm assuming he'll come back.
I have to apologize about me not drawing. My laptop is officially kicked the bucket.
Oh, no. You were doing a great drawing too, Shawn. That was terrific.
Yeah. Oh, thanks.
It was looking good. Hey, we've got Jim back.
Hello, Jim.
Yeah, I'm having some kind of problems over here, so please bear with me.
That was a great dinosaur. Hold that up again, Shawn. Yeah, that's great. Good stuff.
That's
you
awesome,
must be
man.
a fan of Primal by the look of that.
Yes, very, very much so. I love Primal.
Yeah.
Love Primal.
Oh, yeah, that one is awesome.
Steve, what were your thoughts when the first Jurassic Park came out? Did you go see it in the theater?
Well, my review is in Tyrant #1, I believe.
Oh, damn. Okay.
My first thought was, holy shit, this must be what the 1925 The Lost World looked and felt like to a new audience back in 1925 when that film was new. Seeing Jurassic Park, I got to catch it at a preview. I believe it was 2 days before the national opening of the film. There was a sneak preview down in Massachusetts that a group of friends and I went down to. And the impact of seeing Jurassic Park on the big screen when it was brand new is hard to articulate today, because those creatures looked alive, right? We had never seen CGI creatures that believable on the screen. And I remember an intensive conversation on the way home where a couple of the adults in the car were like, I don't know if I'm going to bring my kids to see this, because the movie really put you emotionally on the bottom of the food chain, you know? Now that sounds crazy today, because people have grown up with Jurassic Park, 1, 2, 3, the Jurassic World films. You know, I'm always bemused when there's a new Jurassic World out and people are rushing to rag on it. Man, you guys don't know bad dinosaur movies. You have no idea what a truly bad dinosaur movie is.
Oh yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I used to sit through an entire film to see 2 minutes of a guy in a suit with a zipper up the back. You know, it's like that was a dinosaur movie when we were kids. And you know, the real meat and potatoes and gravy were the films Ray Harryhausen, the stop motion animator, had done, like The Valley of Gwangi, 1 Million Years BC, for Hammer Films. That, you know, that was the cream of the crop. I love Jurassic World, and I'm a big fan of both series, Jurassic World and Jurassic Park series, in part because my criteria is based on, if you promise me something, deliver it if I'm going to see a movie. And everything that's promised on those posters is in the movie and more. I'm also a dinosaur junkie, as you all know by now, and you're feeding my addiction with your drawings. I appreciate the heroin that you're giving me with your brush and ink and pen.
Nice.
And the more dinosaurs, the merrier. There are a number of recent films that I recommend more highly. You know, I recently caught up with the Australian film Primitive War, which is a fantastic dinosaur movie. It's the closest I've ever seen in a movie theater. Well, I didn't get to see it in a theater. I had to wait till it was on disc. It's the closest I've seen in a film to those old Star Spangled War story, The War That Time Forgot. You know, drawn by Ross Andrew and Mike Esposito, and also issues by Russ Heath, issues by Joe Kubert. Gene Colan did one. Primitive War, like, is The War That Time Forgot in spades on the big screen. So there are films that I enjoy more these days than the Jurassic films, but you cannot overstate the impact of Jurassic Park when it was brand new. It was revelatory.
I was working in a movie theater that summer when it came out. So I was in high school. You know, we had to wear the vest, the velour vest, and the little bow tie, polyester pants, and I would work concession or, you know, tear tickets or whatever. But the theater was just like, you know, crazy that summer when that movie came out. It was a big phenomenon, you know, and people would walk out of the movie, you know, looking super excited, but also freaked out, you know, at how good it was and how it's just Spielberg, you know, he knows how to take you on a ride for sure.
He does. And it was interesting when it came out in a 3D edition and nothing had to be done to make that 3D work. I mean, he thinks visually. So all the dimensional depth was already there. The 3D enhancement just it emphasized what had always been on the screen. I noticed some people, you know, consider the recent one bad. I'm sorry. Any movie in which Scarlett Johansson is climbing up into pteranodon nests and people are being swallowed whole by pteranodons, I'm happy. I'm a happy man. You know.
Right. I haven't seen that one yet. That's the latest one, right?
Yeah. Yep. Each one of them has something about it or in it that really pleases me. But you know, I confess, as a lifetime dinosaur addict, my critical functions are at happily low ebb if I go see a dinosaur movie. I'm a big fan of Carnosaur, you know, the film that Adam Simon wrote and directed for Roger Corman, and rushed into theaters like the month before Jurassic Park came out.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I love that stuff. And the more mean-spirited, the better. I mean, if nothing else, Carnosaur had its own axis to grind and went right balls to the wall with it. So I love that stuff.
Yeah.
So, you know, what can I say? I'm a dino movie whore. What can I say?
Steve, there's a new dinosaur documentary. I think it's on Netflix. And I want to, Spielberg's involved with it. I don't know if he's the
he
director or
produced it.
producer.
Yeah,
Have you seen any of that yet?
I haven't seen it as yet. I mean, one of the things with the well, I don't know if they're documentaries. You know, there's essentially CGI animated dinosaur stories without human beings, which is exactly what I set out to do with Tyrant. So I watch those things with mixed emotions, because part of it is I love them, and part of it is, oh shit, that was going to be one issue of Tyrant. Well, now it's on the screen. That's one I won't be doing. Not that I may ever get back to Tyrant, but if I do, you know, my initial plans have already changed, because some of what I was planning has been realized in some of these dinosaur programs that really kicked off with Walking with Dinosaurs being the ground zero.
Someone mentioned Tammy and the T-Rex, which Chris Pierce and I reviewed on Trash Movie Bonanza. Our Steve, we do a YouTube show where we do reviews of like terrible B movies, schlock VHS, you know, kind of classics. But Tammy and the T-Rex, starring a young. Oh, you've seen it? So Denise Richards. You
I not only saw it, I got to meet Denise Richards. Tammy and the T-Rex hit the video market during that period of time I was working in the video market. And in fact, in one of the issues of Tyrant, in the back pages is a photo of me with Denise Richards. Oh, they had she was at a booth. This was right before Starship Troopers hit, which really elevated her, you know, as an actress. And I made sure we brought in multiple copies of Tammy and the T-Rex to our video store. And if you have not seen the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray release yet, you should seek it out, because the Tammy and the T-Rex that was released when it was new was cut. They were aiming for, you know, general audience rating. And the Vinegar Syndrome is the full dose R-rated movie that had originally been done. You know, that's the brain that wouldn't die as a dinosaur movie. What's not to like? It's crazy.
It's amazing. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Tammy and the T-Rex.
There it is. There's the review right there. So if you want to know what I thought, there's the review, all of which will be reprinted in the complete Tyrant. And Jim, you should probably talk about the difference between the two books using these reviews as a way of talking about that.
Yeah, great segue. Perfect. Yeah, we're doing two versions of the Tyrant book that we'll be offering in Kickstarter. One of them is an original art version, which reproduces the original art Steve has kept all these years. It's basically what IDW calls an artist edition. It's going to be like 13 by 19 inches. It's absolutely stunning. The other edition, we're calling the complete edition. That's going to reprint the 4 issues, everything from the 4 issues, including the great back matter, as well as all sorts of stuff that Steve has unearthed around the making of Tyrant, some notes, and I think even scripts on a couple of stories that haven't been drawn yet. There are text pieces that are coming in from a variety of people, like Rick Veitch talking about, you know, the comics qualities of Tyrant, and as well as one of Steve's paleontologist friends, and his name slips my mind, Steve.
Dr. Michael Ryan, and I was just emailing with Michael earlier today. I've been doing some scanning for Michael.
Perfect. So yeah, we're going to have, you know, 2 options there book-wise for depending on whatever your taste is, what you prefer. But that complete edition is going to be everything that we can find, everything that fits in. There are sketches, drawings, dinosaur studies. And we'll have a little bit of that stuff in the artist edition as well, because Steve has drawn dinosaurs in a variety of places, not just Tyrant. So we're lucky to have some really nice pieces that we'll get to include that are outside of Tyrant, but are going to be, they're beautiful. You know, it's if you love Steve's work, you will be very happy with those.
Yeah, among the materials that turned up and that we had scanned and turned over to Jim and Chris, are some of the first dinosaur comic stories I ever did, including a story called Scraps that I did for a zine called Third Rail that one of my Kubert School classmates, Ken Fedunowitz, had edited and published. And Scraps really was, the catalyst for Tyrant. That was the first total dinosaur piece that I ever did as a comic story for publication once I had become professional. We will be including all the letters pages as well, all that back matter. And Mark Martin has graciously given permission for Bless the Beasts to be included. Every issue of Tyrant, the inside back cover was Mark Martin's strip, Bless the Beast, which was about the two dinosaurs on Noah's Ark that nobody talks about.
Yeah. I love Mark Martin as a cartoonist, man. He did some great stuff for Mirage Studios, and did he do Nat
He did
Rat?
Nat Rat.
Is that
he did
it?
Nat
Yeah.
Rat, which was his parody of Dark Knight. Frank
Yes.
Miller's Dark Knight Returns. Mark's a genius, I think.
So good, man. Incredible illustrator and cartoonist, just
and very funny.
Steve,
also very funny cartoonist. He used to do
very funny. Yeah.
He used to be in every issue of the Comic Buyer's Guide back when it was a weekly newsprint tabloid publication. And Mark had a strip called 24 Nude Dancers, which every week would be whatever he wanted it to be. And it was phenomenal, the stuff he had in there, including he did one strip where he revealed the deep, dark secret of how I eat breakfast, right? That I have my cereal dry with a cup of skim milk. I don't put milk on my cereal. Mark found that like really astonishing. But he also revealed secrets about other cartoonists too, like Kevin Eastman would take off his socks and clean between his toes, that kind of thing. So Mark's amazing, and I'm really glad that he was willing to have us reprint that. We're also including in some of the work that people hadn't seen, Mark had painted the cover for Tyrant number 5. I drew all the covers. I drew brush, pen, and ink, but the covers to issue 1 and 4 were painted by Gerhardt, best known for his collaborative work with Dave Sim on Cerebus. And Mark Martin had done the color work on what was to be the cover of number 5. All that's going to be in the complete Tyrant edition that Jim's putting together.
Yeah,
Steve,
and those covers are beautiful. Like, talk about, serendipity that they just reappeared as you're putting this book together. It's amazing. I had never seen that stuff before.
And I hadn't seen it since I shipped it off to the production house with Murphy Anderson and his son, Murphy Anderson III. Tyrant number 3 is the one that Jim is sharing right now.
I was going to say, this is insane, man. Like,
that is the trippiest comic I ever did. I mean, that comic is trippier than the Swamp Thing Rites of Spring, trip issue. So
this is, just the shapes and the decision making. I mean, I showed this stuff off, but I'll go through it real quick. But this is just a page, just the decision of that being. And then you get to this stuff, like it's
well, I was trying to communicate. I mean, we all take for granted things like eggs, and every egg is a universe onto itself. And in trying to chronicle what the development of this being would have been from the point where it was a little spot on a yolk on an egg that had been just laid to the little creature that hatches out of it, ready to meet the world. Most dinosaurs that we know from any egg fossils, they were hatching, unlike young birds or human beings or a lot of mammals. When they hatched, they were ready to go. They were able to defend themselves, eat, be active in the world. And I really wanted to communicate in that chapter what these little contained universes were. And the only way to do it was to put you in there as completely as I could. It also was a lot of fun to draw because I used every trick in the book as a pen and ink and brush and ink artist to try to render those textures,
you can tell.
just working with black and white, just working with, my drawing tools.
Every pen, every nib, what did you use? Did you just do pure white for your white? Like you paint, obviously there's some white being painted into the
I've
wood.
got a number of whiteout tools that I use. You know, let's talk a bit about that because you know, one of the things I've always experimented with from my teenage years is I would go into hardware stores and see what might lend itself to being an art tool. And back in, let's see, I graduated high school in '73, so it probably would have been around 1972. I found in a local Vermont hardware store something that was at that time called a cattle marker. And they were like sticks of shoe polish, right? It was like having a stick of white shoe polish. And they were usually sold in white, blue, or yellow. And it's a great medium to use over your drawings, either watercolor or wash drawings or, you know, pen, brush, and ink drawings, because when you lay it down, it doesn't dry instantly. It's opaque, but you can smear it with the edge of your thumb and you can manipulate it. Once it dries, it's absolutely permanent. You've only got a few seconds before it
That
really
sounds
dries.
amazing.
And some of those panels you were showing, Jim, that's what those wet white surfaces are rendered with. Now, now you can go online and buy them from art supply places. They're called Mean Streak. One word, capital M, capital S, Mean Streak. And they sell them. They come as kind of a stick, and you twist the bottom to extend, you know, the white crayon as you're using it up. But one Mean Streak will last you 5 to 6 years. This stuff never dries out until you put it down on paper.
Okay, that's awesome.
It is a great drawing tool. I also use things like more traditional tools like Dr. Martin's, you know, opaque white. I love the fact now, you know, over the last 20 years, we've really been in a sweet spot of being able to go into you know, an office supply place and buy different kinds of white pens, whiteout pens.
Yes,
you know.
Yes.
And that's taken us way beyond what was available to us in the mid 70s when I was a student at the Kubert School, where pretty much you were limited to, you know, Dr. Martin's opaque white that you had to lay down with a brush, or like typewriter whiteout that you might actually use the typewriter and rub it off onto the paper. Joe Kubert used to work with different gauges of white tape, and I still keep different widths of white tape by my drawing table because you can use them for all kinds of things. Jim, you've probably noticed in the scans, I would use them to you know, mark panel borders. You know, I would ink over the line of the panel border and then use white tape to cover up what I didn't want visible going beyond the panel borders and so on. But Joe Kubert used to use, you know, white tape as a drawing tool. When we were students the first year, Joe's studio was in the school, you know, right across the hall from our classroom space. God. And Joe occasionally would tolerate, if we were quiet, you know, we could go in and watch him work for a stretch of time. And Joe used to, you know, he would have like 4 penciled covers that were due in New York the next day. And he would bring them in and he would work all hours of the night, inking them, getting them all done. And watching Joe draw was just like watching a magician work. He would have pens and brushes behind each ear and between each finger. He was ambidextrous. And he would just like bang, 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 bang. And if he put down a brush stroke or a pen stroke that he wasn't happy with, he had right there on his board this tape that he could lay over what he wanted to cover up and redraw on. And the tape was such that it would hold ink perfectly, and it was invisible that there was any kind of seam there. And that really inspired me to be fluid in my drawing. You know, watching Joe work gave me the courage to, you know, when you're drawing, for me, it's as much a physical process as exercising or doing anything else. I tend to draw from the elbow and wrist rather than the fingers. You know, it's like my whole arm is in it sometimes. And part of that was because watching Joe work, I realized that primal brush stroke that he would lay down that felt so raw and immediate was because he was drawing, you know, in a way that a lot of cartoonists don't. A lot of people just draw, you know, using their fingers. They're just manipulating the pen like this. Whereas, you know, Joe would be using his body. And that really gave me the confidence to, get reckless. Don't be afraid.
So, do you work?
It really shows off
oversized?
in your original pages too, like the pages that I've seen for Tyrant, especially, and also for Swamp Thing. I feel like I've seen some originals of that float around online. Billy Ireland has one, but it makes for, I'm sure a lot of people watching this are fans of the artist editions. And sometimes you get an artist edition that almost looks like black and white photocopies because it's all clean and, kind of too neat. Like I want to see the whiteout. I want to see those brush strokes. I want to see all the marks on the paper. And the Tyrant artwork, it's loaded with that stuff. It has a real almost dimensional quality to it because of what you described there, Steve.
To me, it's also capturing movement. I mean, people don't tend to associate my work with Gene Colan, but Gene Colan was a real inspiration to me as a reader growing up. But once I was drawing professionally, Gene was the only American cartoonist I could think of who would incorporate in old school photography that blurring of motion. If something or somebody was moving quicker than the shutter lens, and it would become that blurring. Colan used that in his work, and I used it in Swamp Thing often. And John Tottleman knew what to do with it, just like inker Tom Palmer was one of the few inkers who knew what to do when Gene Colan was doing that in Tomb of Dracula, one of my all-time favorite comics. People have asked about, did I give any thought to using screen tones, or did I just want to hand ink all the textures? I would use anything to get the texture I wanted. I would use anything. I used to draw a lot with Zipatone, which were those plastic sheets that were self-adhesive that you could cut out and lay down screen tones with. And I also loved working with Duoshade board, which was a chemical board that would have an embedded pattern on the board, either a pebble pattern or a crosshatch pattern. And you put one chemical down and you get a light gray, and you put another chemical down to get the deeper gray. And I loved working with Duoshade. But with Tyrant, and Jim, you probably noticed once you were looking through the scans, like that whole egg issue, I'm building to a full page shot of the nearly full grown baby Tyrannosaurus inside the egg. And that was the only image in that issue where I used a pebble board and a crayon, a coquille board, it was called. And because I wanted to use it so that the reader's eye would stop on that page. Like it was a different texture than anything else you'd seen before. One of the things we cannot control as a visual artist when we're doing comics is we can't control the speed with which a reader is taking in our images. If you've seen footage of, commuters on a train in Japan reading manga, man, they're bombing through those books. They're like, it's almost like they're flip books to them. And if you're able to use a drawing device, one of the tools in our toolkit is how can I stop the reader and make them spend a couple more seconds on a given image or page. Sometimes it's color you can use, and Tatiana Wood was a master at that, coloring Swamp Thing. But when it's a black and white comic, one of the few tools we can use is when you bring a more illustrative look to a given panel or page, my hope is the reader will spend a little more time drinking in that image if there's something to stop their eye to take that pause. And in that case, to answer the question about using screen tones and so on, that was one page in the egg issue where I use coquille board, which is a textured paper, and you take a black crayon to bring out the pre-printed texture on it, so that there was kind of a pebbly, almost fetal scale texture to that baby inside the egg prior to hatching.
That's amazing.
Really, really quickly, guys, I want to give a shout out. We got a $50 super chat from C. Stevens. He said,
wow.
Even my wife looked up at the TV as she left the room and said, the dinosaurs look nice. Art monsters, all of you. Soft drinks for you all.
Thank you.
All these dinosaurs look amazing.
Is that Chris Stevens from, we just saw him at OAX?
Wait, that's not, is that Chris?
Yeah, that's Chris. Chris Stevens, publisher of Lighthouse.
Our guru.
Oh,
Our guru.
Yes.
Oh wow!
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank
Chris.
you, man.
Wow. Wow. Amazing.
Jim, how's are you done with the
Yeah, it's
project?
nice that you approve of the drawings, Steve.
Oh, I
It's
beyond improve. I'm kind of ashamed that I didn't prepare to draw. I didn't know. I didn't know.
Yeah, I cheated and did a little bit of prep. I did some sketches so that I would have some references for
Oh, nice.
Oh,
for
sweet.
dinosaurs today.
Oh, really sweet.
Yeah, I feel like it's a lot of pressure when you're in the room and you know we're drawing dinosaurs like you know.
I've doing the show with Jim. He just gets in and throws it down every week. So this week I was like, I'm not gonna plan. I'm just gonna do what Jim does, and I just went for it with the brush and pens.
Looks great.
It looks
Yeah, I feel
awesome.
like that worked really well.
You know,
Thank you.
what
Yeah,
you've
it's been a
done
lot of
there,
fun.
Shawn, is what I often do when I'm drawing, you know, my characters, my creatures, is you settle on a shape, a form that
Yeah.
gives an emotional push or an emotional feeling, and you build the drawing around that. I tend to draw my creatures from the inside out, but
Nice.
I'm always thinking in terms of, you know, what's the not just the expression of the figure or the face or the extremities, but what's the shape I'm putting down on the page, and
Right.
you know what's the impact on a viewer or a reader, that shape alone. What's the
I love
graphic?
that. That's great.
Oh, real quick, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep,
cool.
we can hear you.
Yep.
Wasn't sure.
We did have another couple of questions. That I
Yeah,
thought
bring
might
them
be good
on,
ones.
please, Jamie.
We did have someone ask when the Kickstarter actually launches, which we should probably mention.
Jim?
Yeah, hopefully Chris is still watching this and can correct me. I believe it's like March 17th, I want to say. Hopefully that's accurate. It's around that date. If that's not the exact date, it'd be whatever Tuesday is right around March 17th.
Okay, cool.
I've put the link in the chat a few times. If you guys go to that link, you can hit notify me on launch and you'll get an email when the campaign launches.
Yeah, that's the best thing to do for sure. But I think at this point the date is locked in, and it's my bad for not having it committed to memory. But I think it's March 17th, I'm going to say.
Another good question we had from John Burkett, who said, what were you using as reference to get such specific visuals for Tyrant? That sequence inside the egg is incredible.
Jim Rugg, sorry to repeat this. You've heard a version of this, but I'll share it here. The reference I had when I started Tyrant was pretty much the same kind of pop science books that would have been available to anybody, right? I mean, that's what was available to me as a consumer and a reader. So when I started Tyrant, I look back at Tyrant 1 and I flinch at a lot of mistakes I made, right? There's certain basics that cartoonists screw up, right? And I'll just give you a couple of them. Number one, you know, everyone presumes now dinosaurs all had feathers. Now, it's not true. Some species did, some species didn't. People forget that there was no grass, right? Grass didn't exist yet. Grass didn't enter the vegetable world, the botanical world, until late, very late in the Cretaceous. There were flowering plants by the end of the Cretaceous, but there wasn't grass. And as cartoonists, what's the simplest shorthand most of us have for indicating an outdoor ground? You know, we do that
Grass.
Charles Schultz Peanuts thing of a few blades of grass. I couldn't do that with Tyrant, and I knew that going in. The further I got into it, thanks to my friend Michael Ryan, who at the time was a paleontologist with the Royal Tyrrell Museum up in Ottawa, Canada, Michael really opened, you know, the door to me being able to access paleontological material that was not available to me prior to my starting on Tyrant. And he also convinced me to join the Society for Vertebrate Paleontology, the SVP. And I began to attend their annual SVP symposiums, where you would spend a weekend in a different city in North America at a gathering of paleontologists who would be presenting their papers, their research. And every event was usually at a sponsoring museum. And I got comfortable enough by the second year that I really tried to tap what was possible in some of these museums in terms of their resources. I'll never forget, being taken down into the underbelly of one of these museums and being shown and allowed to touch the fossil of the shell of that turtle that is in Tyrant #4, right?
Oh, wow.
The end of the book. Like, there's the animal. There's what's left of the animal. And it really changes your it really changes you on a almost cellular level when you're drawing. Like, if you've had that kind of intimate contact with a fossil like that. I really felt like, okay, I get this character now. This turtle was a real character for me. So I had more and more access. I felt like Tyrant #2, the second issue, was much more aligned with what the current paleontology was at that time. And bear in mind, the science of the paleontology, how we reconstruct these incredible prehistoric animals and life forms, has changed dramatically since I had done Tyrant back in the mid-90s. Science is an ever-changing environment, right? There really is no stability in science. It's always a series of questions, and every question invites fresh approaches in these interpretations and these reconstructions. And another aspect is, every year, every day, new fossils are found, or you finally have a researcher paying attention to a fossil that's been sitting in a museum collection since the 1890s or the early 1900s, and they're taking a new look at these fossils and realizing, oh my God, this is a different species, or what have you. So Michael Ryan is the one who really, 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 opened everything up for me. And by the time I was working on that egg issue, I thought I was almost done with the issue. Like, I was already calling up my Kim Prenny at Prenny Print and Litho, preparing to send the original art off to be printed. And I had done all the research possible on what was available to me, which was chicken embryology, bird embryology, and a little bit of reptile embryology. Because there were no fossils of Tyrannosaurus Rex eggs. We don't know, what those eggs were like at the time I was working on that issue.
Right.
And just as I thought I was almost done, Michael let me know that the first book on dinosaur eggs was about to see print from an academic press. So I waited until the book was out. I immediately pre-ordered it. I got a copy in, and this is one of those academic press books that was like $110 to buy, right? And it blew my mind, and it changed everything about 2/3 of the book. I ended up redrawing 2/3 of that particular chapter. Another thing that Michael provided to me, and I reminded him of this recently, he of course had forgotten. He also found and mailed to me embryological photographs of alligator and crocodile eggs, the development of the embryo inside the egg, and collared lizards. Because I have to conjecture, right? The dinosaurs were somewhere between reptiles and birds. People now call birds, dinosaurs, because they are what the species evolved into. So I was having to extrapolate, from the available science on the embryology of various birds, various reptiles, what might be happening inside of a Tyrannosaurus egg. And then this book came out, Dinosaur Eggs and Embryos, and it was like, oh my God, there's all this new information here, including information about how the eggs were breathing organisms, right? How they would release and inhale gases. I mean, these are, every egg is like a little living creature in and of itself. And so I ended up redrawing and partially rewriting 2/3 of that chapter after that book was in my hand. And I was always refining my approach to drawing the characters, drawing the animals. I really felt like by Tyrant 4, it was all clicking for me. I felt like, okay, now I'm in the groove. This feels good, and this feels right to me. it was really hard to pull the plug at that point. I mean, the whole direct sale market imploded. We lost all our distributors almost overnight. It was down to just Diamond Comics being the only distributor that was left standing. And I realized that the economic model that had sustained my being able to focus almost exclusively on Tyrant day in, day out was gone, that I would no longer be able to do that. And that was really hard. That was really hard to pull that plug, because I felt like I had just hit, you know, the zone. I was finally in the zone where this stuff was singing. Oh well.
And Steve, did you have to pull the plug on like other Spider Baby projects that were happening?
Oh yeah, I had already put out 2 issues of Spider Baby comics where I was reprinting earlier creative work, and I had already laid out and designed and done the covers for Spider Baby 3 and 4, and you know, was preparing to send all the elements to Murphy Anderson and Murphy Anderson III. Murphy and Murphy would do all the digital work on the front covers and the inside covers. You know, they were working with the pioneering digital technology, and they would prepare that stuff as film that they would then send to Print and Litho for the actual preparation of the printing plates and so on. At Prenny, they would shoot all the original art and prepare everything that was in the interior pages. The way we used to do comics was crazy. Like, I was FedExing stuff to New Jersey to Murphy Anderson and Murphy Anderson's son, Murphy III, for work on the covers, front, back, interior covers, and then shipping all the original art off to Canada, including the paste ups I had done for all the backup pages, right? If there was a photograph there, I had to go to a local graphics firm, which was Zinn Graphics, Zinn Graphics in Brattleboro, Vermont, and they would they would screen any photographs that I was going to run, and then I would paste up those photo stats with the typesetting. All of that got FedEx to Canada. This was back when that was safe and affordable. You know, we didn't have all the crazy, you know, deconstruction of our postal and our surface shipping that we're all coping with today. It used to be, Jamie, for me to send something to you in Glasgow would have cost me $17, right? And you'd have had it that week, no problem, right? And that's how it was back in the 90s. The ability to work collaboratively with printers and other writers and cartoonists around the globe was feasible. Now, of course, you know, people use email and you know, WeTransfer and things like that to move files around without worrying about that. But we didn't have that capability in the 90s. Everything physically had to move across the geographic surface to get to the destination of the printer or the production house.
Wow.
And then you would hope that it would safely get there, and you would hope that it would safely get back.
Man, yeah. It's just taking your chances, right?
Steve, did it ever not safely get back? Like, I know with Tyrant you've gotten everything, but with your friends and stuff, would you hear stories about artwork being lost in transition like that or damaged?
Oh, Jim, you know, with Marvel Comics, Marvel was the worst. With Marvel, I worked for Marvel for a number of years and contributed work primarily to their black and white magazines, Bizarre Adventures, which was originally Marvel Preview. And when you did a job for Marvel, you delivered original art to deliver the job. When it was time to return the artwork, you would get this form in the mail that you had to sign that basically stated that they were returning the art as a courtesy. It was not your property. It was their property. You couldn't sell it. You couldn't show it. You know, there were all these restrictions they were placing on it that, of course, we all ignored. I mean, artists were selling artwork and galleries were beginning to display comic art. And it wasn't until you signed and returned that form that you got the artwork back. When I did the Dracula story with my late friend Steve Perry, he wrote this terrific story, The Blood Bequest, that was in Bizarre Adventures. I think it's number 33. When I got the original art back, there was a double-page spread at the beginning of the story, and there was a hole punched through it that looked like somebody taken a ski pole and just driven it through the original art, you know.
Damn.
And I did the best I could to reconstruct it, you know, tape it from behind, overlay all the pieces so the tears were minimized, and then I went in with some ink and tone to doctor it up. Eclipse Comics, a similar thing happened with the story Scraps, Jim, that you're, putting into the complete Tyrant
Yes.
edition. One of those pages came back damaged. You never knew, At DC Comics, infamously, an entire issue of Swamp Thing was stolen right out of the DC offices. They had packaged up the entire Rites of Spring issue, the issue with Abby and Swamp Thing consummating their relationship through Abby eating, one of the tubers off Swamp Thing's back and going on a hallucinogenic trip into the green. That entire issue was stolen right out of DC's offices.
Wow.
Whoa.
And we publicized that it had been stolen, which caused a lot of friction at DC. Like, they weren't happy about that. But John Tolman and I were like, look, we can't have somebody walk up to us at a show with stolen artwork. We've got to make an attempt to get it back. And we put out the word in the Comic Buyer's Guide, which was a weekly comic trade publication at that time, that if anyone would return it, no questions asked. We were asking for that, and we did get back everything except the front cover, the last page, and the pinup pages for that for subsequent issue, and one of the other covers we never got back. John Tolman still watches the auction sites to see if they'll ever turn up, but we did get the bulk of that issue back, and we did sell some pages. So, if people see pages out there from Swamp Thing 34, that's legit. That stuff was returned. And as we promised, we didn't ask questions, to this day. I'm not sure who was behind that theft, but return of original art was a tough thing. And Jim Rugg referred earlier in the conversation to two of the Tyrant covers that had just come back. The cover for Tyrant number 4, this is Gerhardt's painting on watercolor paper over my black and white drawing. This original just came back to me last month. Murphy Anderson III rescued this art. He made sure it didn't end up in an auction house. He contacted Rick Veitch in early February, and said, Rick, I've got some of your artwork. I got to get back to you, because Rick was using Murphy and Murphy as well for the production of the covers and inside covers on his self-published comic, Roaring Rick's Rare Bit Fiends. And at the end of that first conversation, God bless Rick, he said, I think you still have some of Steve's art. And this original came back to me about, 3 weeks ago. And the original by Mark Martin, this is what would have been the cover for Tyrant number 5.
That's awesome.
Wow.
And
That's amazing.
And I had thought by the year 2000, 25 years or more ago, that's it. I'm never going to see this work back. Jim can attest that originally when we started work, I was like, we'll have to work from the printed comic on those. I think I had color photocopies that we scanned, but now we've got the originals. So we'll include those in I think both editions.
Yeah, both editions will have those. They're such fantastic pieces. And to see cover 5, Steve, you mentioned about kind of really feeling your ability to draw these characters by issue 4. It's some of your best work. It's incredible that gets to come in. That issue 5 cover is just a thing of beauty. I mean, the whole book, I think, is a thing of beauty, but that's a really, really special piece.
Well, thanks. That issue was going to be, pretty lively going. It was going to be what happened at the Nest when the shit hit the fan. Pardon my French. A lot of people, I hope people take a deeper read of Tyrant, especially once they see the original art edition. I had planted all kinds of story clues in there. If you take a look at in Tyrant number 1, that full page splash of the mother T-Rex laying her eggs, and this is her first nest, right? She didn't know what mating was. She's not sure what's happening with her body. This is all instinct driving her, as with any animal who's giving birth for the first time, right? The body takes over, and she's laying those eggs. If you look at that full page splash, I had planted the clues of the disaster that was to come, which is you look at the hill that she's built her nest in, and it's surrounded by broken trees. In fact, there's broken trees embedded in the gravel of that hill. And what this is that is a bank of soil and debris that was washed up by a flash flood. And she's building on unstable ground. And what drives baby Tyrant and his siblings out of the nest is there's another heavy thunderstorm, and another flash flood hits, and it washes away the rest of that hill. So I was planting a lot of clues, visually, that was going to bear fruition later in the narrative.
Right.
And
That's cool,
I look at these pages and it's like, oh shit, there's a story I didn't get to tell, but you can't tell all the stories in your head. I mean, you guys know you're all juggling all kinds of narrative stuff in your head. And we only have so much time in this life, in this world, in this life. And I did a story for Heavy Metal. I think it's the last thing I ever did for Heavy Metal after Kevin Eastman had bought the magazine, and they were doing a special issue. And I did this really bizarre story about this guy who's haunted by these little creatures that he sees everywhere around his apartment. And what that story was about was all the stories I knew I wasn't going to get to tell. I have notebooks and sketchbooks full of story ideas, and some of them are pretty fleshed out in the sketchbook. But, as a cartoonist, especially working in comics the way it used to be, you would make a pitch to an editor, and if they weren't interested, that was it. You didn't have a venue for that story,
Right.
And so, there was a lot of stories I was looking forward to telling in Tyrant about these creatures that I never got to after I pulled the plug.
Man, yeah.
Just
Steve,
quickly, guys. Sorry, I would like to mention we got a $10 super chat from Eric Canetti. He said,
Eric.
please tell Bissette that I find his dino drawings truly inspiring.
Nice.
Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, dude. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Eric.
Somebody asked about a Tyrant sequel. I don't know. Next week I turn 71. And I don't know if you can see my fingers, but arthritis is setting in. I can still draw pretty comfortably, but I make my living primarily these days, what we laughingly call a living, writing. I do a lot of commentary track and bonus features for various Blu-ray and 4K clients, content for film releases on disc. That's my bread and butter these days. I don't know. In one of the conversations Jim Rugg and I had on an earlier podcast, I talked a little bit about being in the zone. From the year 1976, from that late August when I showed up at the Kubert School for the first day, right through to my pulling the plug on Tyrant. Even though I had a very busy life, met and fell in love with the woman who was my first wife. We moved from Santa Fe, New Mexico to Vermont, had kids, both our kids were born at home. We worked with midwives and our kids were born right in our home. I had a very eventful life, but I was always in the zone. I was always in this weird space where whatever I was working on was percolating in my head, and it would occupy a lot of my unconscious life. My creative life was absolutely central to my existence. And when I pulled the plug on Tyrant, I pulled the plug on living in the zone. I shifted gears into going back into the workplace. I had worked from the age of 6 until I was 21 in my family's grocery store. We had a grocery store in northern Vermont. And I plugged back into that retail existence, working at a video superstore in Brattleboro, Vermont, First Run Video. And I was fortunate to have the job. It was a job involving movies, and I love cinema and I love movies as much as I love comics, but it pulled me out of the zone. And even during the 15 years I was teaching at CCS, which were 15 of the best years of my life, teaching was one of the best things I ever could have done. I felt so fortunate to be there, and I learned so much from it. But I'm not back in that zone. I'll have little finite windows where I get back into it as an artist with my drawing. But I really got you know, kind of knocked myself out of that sweet spot, that zone. When I write, you know, if I got 5 minutes, I'll write. I can pick up anything I'm working on, a nonfiction essay, a book project, a short story I've written. I had a brand new short story published last year in an anthology called Becoming Nosferatu. When I'm writing, I can come and go from that creative space, shifting gears from day-to-day world, whatever the current demand or thing happening, into the writing and out again. Not a problem. But to draw, I really got to shut the whole fucking world out. And I just want to be in my studio. I met my second wife, Marjorie, 31 years ago, earlier in February. We've been together 31 years. And we quickly set up a language, an understanding between us that if Marge hears the radio or music playing in my studio, that means leave me alone. I'm not going to answer a phone call. I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm in the zone. And it takes me a while to get into that zone. And it's kind of work for me to get there. Once I get in there, it's wonderful again. But I've never done a Tyrant sequel. I've even written and laid out 2 entire stories. I workshopped them with the great Paul Karasik. He let me take not 1, but 2 of his summer workshops, graphic novel workshops. If you ever get to work with Paul Karasik at one of his workshops, do it. I got so much work done during those 1 weeks. And I completely wrote, laid out 2 new Tyrant stories. But I never had the venue or the time or that creative space to fall back into it and finish them up. So maybe someday, but I don't know. I just don't know.
What about dabbling in a sketchbook, Steve?
Oh, I draw, you know,
Yeah.
not as much as I used to. I don't want to bring down the conversation, but our son, Michael Blyer, died from brain cancer June of 2024, and I barely drew after that. I barely drew after that. Like some hole in my soul just kind of, you know, took that will out of me, and I've gradually been getting back into it. And I've been working to set up my studio anew so that I can get in there and draw. You know, hopefully a lot of, you know, Tyrant only exists because the Project 1963 that Rick Veitch, Alan Moore, myself, and close friends like John Toddleben, Don Simpson, Chester Brown, Dave Gibbons, you know, we all collaborated on this project for Image called 1963. And it made more money than all my life put together.
Right.
Okay. Comics. I was only part of 3 of those 6 comics. I made more money off of those than all my career put together.
That's crazy.
That's what bought me
that's amazing
time to get into Tyrant. And Tyrant, when there were more than one distributor, was viable. I was able to pay all my bills from the income I got off Tyrant. And when the direct sale market imploded, when that all collapsed, that was no longer viable. And I've never been back to that kind of financial freedom. I've never tasted it again. You know, never happened again. And, you know, when I was teaching for 15 years, I would occasionally work on comics material. Students would invite me to contribute to an anthology they were doing. In fact, Tyrant in Slumberland, this piece, which is going to appear in one or both of the books.
Oh, that's great.
You know, this was done for one of the anthologies that a group of the students at CCS had put together called Sundays. And fortunately, Jim had seen this. Jim, where did you see this? In Sundays? Did you see it?
It must have been Sundays. You know, I would see Chuck Forsman at different shows, and I must have picked it up from him. It's the only thing I can think of.
That makes perfect sense because Chuck Forsman, Joe Lambert, Alex Kim, Jeff Locke, there was a group of them, that class that put together an anthology called Sundays. And that was the last Tyrant page I ever did. And Jim had seen it and mentioned it to Chris Stevens when Chris was putting together Dream a Little Dream, a collection of new comics inspired by Little Nemo and Slumberland by the great Winsor McKay. And thank you, Jim Rugg, for bringing it to Chris's attention, because that's what brought Chris and I together for the first time. And it was reprinted in the crowdfunder edition. It was not included, for reasons I'll never know, in the mass market edition of Dream, a Little Dream. But that's what brought Chris Stevens and I together, was Jim Rugg saying, hey, Bissette did this comic that fits the Little Nemo concept, and Chris invited me in. And so, maybe I'll, if a kind of financial autonomy kicks in for any period of time, that may buy the time that I hope to have to maybe do another couple of installments of Tyrant. But my original plan was a 15 to 20 year plan, and I'm about to turn 71, so that ain't happening.
well, Tatiana Wood made it another 30 years, so you'd have plenty of time to do the 15-year version of Tyrant.
Maybe so, but I love writing about fucked up movies too much, so I've kind of scattered my discipline, if you will.
Hey Steve, I have a question. As you're talking about drawing, is drawing something that brings you pleasure? Is it more like work?
That's a great question. Forgive my getting philosophical. I think, we all carry little tape players in our head. Let's go with that metaphor. I worked for my father from the age of 6 till I was 21. And I have a lot of fucked up tapes I play that involved having been working for my father for that length of time, right? I think, honestly, one of the reasons Karen Berger got so much good work out of me on Swamp Thing is playing my dad tapes never worked with Karen Berger, right? It's like, and I drove Karen nuts. I mean, if anyone wonders why I was never part of a Vertigo project or anything, I think I just drove Karen too far off the deep end. But Karen got my best work out of me, and it was because we all have this inner thing, and it's different for every one of us, where if we fall into an employer and employee emotional space, we create all these obstacles for ourselves. I know it drives my beloved friend Rick Veach crazy that I'm not more prolific. I'm incredibly prolific. I got like 2 new books out in the past 3 months alone. I got all this new work coming out, but it's not comics. I'm not doing comics. Rick is doing new comics all the time. My interests and my disciplines go in all sorts of different directions, and I love writing as much as I love drawing. Now, to answer your question, Jim, when I get in the space in my studio where I'm in a groove, it's fun. It's really fun. I'll never forget Dave Sim once using the metaphor that penciling's a lot of work. When you're laying out a comic and you're doing the pencils, that's the work. But when you're inking, Dave's term was, it's like skating. And that's true. Once I've got the brush in my hand or the pen in my hand, the hard work has been done on the page. The inking is the fun part. Watching you guys draw just got me wanting to go into studio. So and I can even tell you the kind of music I listen to responds to that. When I'm working on something where I'm penciling or doing page design, I can't listen to music with lyrics.
That's how I am.
Listen to anything with words, right?
Yep.
So I have like a huge collection of CDs of movie soundtracks and classical music and a lot of jazz. I'm a big jazz aficionado, thanks to growing up with my friend James Harvey, who became a jazz musician. And but when I'm inking, I can listen to anything. I put on my Captain Beefheart favorite albums, or Tom Waits, John Prine, anything. I can listen to anything when I'm inking, because it's a whole different mental and physical process, and it's comfortable to me. I'm also the kind of artist that loves accidents. Like, I invite accidents. I'm not a control freak. It's part of the reason I love working with watercolors and pigments, because accidents sometimes create the best effects. And you can always clean up, you can always alter, or I break out the mean streak,
Oh yeah.
So once I'm in the groove, Jim, I have fun, but I got a lot of you know, fucked up emotional tapes that I play between the cup and the lip to get into that space. You know, I got to kind of lose myself in the studio and push all the shit I put my own way out of the way to get into that space. I don't have that with writing. And I've got a lot of friends who are professional writers and novelists, and with them it's the reverse. You know, a lot of them draw for pleasure or doodle for pleasure, no obstacles. Writing for them is the chore. So it probably has to do with, you know, once I was working professionally, drawing was a job. It was no longer what I did as an amusement or something to occupy myself when it was just pure pleasure. And I don't know how to get back instantly to that sweet spot. I think all of us, as we're growing up as kids, love to draw. And that's kind of hammered out of a lot of us, you know. And it was never hammered out of me. But once it became work, you know, suddenly I started playing those dad tapes, you know, working for my dad shit. And, you know, I haven't been able to find a way to get rid of that. I worked with a therapist for a couple of years after my first wife and I separated and divorced. I stayed on with a therapist that I was seeing, and we tangled with that, but there was no, you know, I didn't get out the other end of that. Whatever it is, it's pretty deeply ingrained in me. And it does not affect my writing. I can write any time of day or night. Again, you know, if I got 5 minutes, I'll use it. If I got 5 hours, I'll use it. But with drawing, I got to shut everything out.
Shawn and Jim, do you guys have a favorite? Like, do you like inking compared to penciling? Do you kind of have a preference in the process?
Inking to me is like playtime. Like that's where I'm just I can kind of turn off the deep thinking and improvise and just have fun and figure it out as I go. The thumbnails are like brain surgery for me. Like that's such intense, deep thought. And penciling for me is like I'm trying to get like keep what I like about my thumbnails and figure out the rest in ink. And penciling's like this stage in the middle where sometimes I don't put as much down, and then my inks are sometimes more fun, but also not as they don't look as good. Like the drawings don't look as good, and then sometimes I pencil a little further, and that can also go the like backfire where the inks don't have room to play. So yeah, inking's just playtime, I guess, is the simple answer to that question.
You know, the reason that Scott McCloud invented 24-hour comics was because he saw me doing sketches at a convention.
Really?
And he was like, Steve, why, you know, the sketches you just pour out and, you know, why does it take you so long to do a comic page? And, you know, I had a couple of answers for that. One of them was, well, those sketches at conventions, I never have to look at again.
right.
Exactly.
And the other factor was, I've always compared doing a comic page to ballet. You know, it looks easy. Try it, you know, because there's multiple disciplines involved. There's, you guys know, like you're dealing with multiple things. You're working as a storyteller. You're working as a graphic designer. You're working with the page as a unit. You're working with those panels as units. It all has to synthesize. You're placing word balloons and captions to lead the eye as much as anything else on that page is going to lead the eye. They're like, we're working with all these different components, and we have to perfectly synthesize them for a page to sing. So Scott came up with, Steve, I'm going to propose 24 pages in 24 hours so that you're taking the discipline I see you do at a convention, doing sketches and putting it with a comic.
That's amazing.
And you know, having grown up swimming in really ice cold swimming quarries in northern Vermont, I rationally said, okay, you first, right? Because you wait to see if your friend jumping off the ledge is going to hit a rock or not before you jump into the quarry too.
Oh yeah.
So Scott did his, and I did mine. I think within that week, I did the second one in the world. Scott, after telling me we're not supposed to prepare or anything, went to the fucking library and got a stack of books. So he kind of prepared, I found out, right?
Oh, he cheated.
Now, on the day when and I'm not bragging, the day I did my 24-hour comic, which was A Life in Black and White, I published it in Taboo number 7, if I remember correctly, is where it first was published. And Dave Sim published it in Cerebus. I not only had the 24-hour clock running to do the comic, I also had to get Maya and Danny up and ready for their day and off to school. Actually, no, it was in the summer. So I had to get them to their play group or their friends and make lunch for them. You know, I had all this family stuff I had to do, but I still got my comic done within the 24 hours, despite all the dad stuff I had to do. And I didn't know at the time, but both Scott and I actually did 25 pages because we both did a full page splash just to kind of
nice.
There,
nice.
You know. But I bring that up because working on the 24-hour comic, there wasn't time to pencil or script. You just had to go. And that's the closest I ever got to, you know, drawing a comic in a manner that felt like inking without all the other, you know, procedural stuff that has to prepare you for inking, right?
Yeah.
Right,
I was just going.
right.
I was just going. So I never did it again. I once tried to do another 24-hour comic. It was kind of like I ran that marathon. I don't have to prove anything to anybody.
Yeah.
Right? So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
never did a second 24-hour comic.
That's a lot. All right. Well, we've hit our 2-hour mark here.
Well, you guys are great.
Inkpulp
Thanks
Live.
for this. I hope it was useful. Can I do some pitching before we go?
Please
course.
do. That's
Okay.
what I want to hear it. Bring it
So
on.
I've mentioned a couple of times, and one of you mentioned Rick Veitch is doing this whole line of print-on-demand comics now. This is the latest issue of True Man, which is Rick Veitch's ongoing Sun Comics King Hell Heroica series. It's great. I really recommend it.
We love Rick Veitch.
And what I've been doing, I'm the guy that convinced Rick to engage with print-on-demand on Amazon. Ingram Spark is one platform, and Amazon Kindle is the other platform. And whatever your concerns about Amazon or your concerns about Ingram, they're two of the biggest distributors on the planet. It's what we got to work with. I push aside my political and ideological reservations about them, and I go to town. So what I've been doing is I have 2 new books out. S.R. Bissette's Tyrant presents Paleopop.
Oh, that
Volume 1
awesome.
and Volume 2.
Nice.
Okay, they're both out right now. This is the proof I got on Volume 2. The actual book is available now on Amazon. And these are available around the world. Once you put your work up, print on demand on Amazon, you get to choose what market you want it in. You can have it sold around the world. And what this solved for me was the problem of shipping, right? I've got fans in Indonesia and Australia and New Zealand. I don't have to worry about shipping product to them. They can order it in their home country. And what these books are my essays on prehistoric pop culture. This is essentially 2 volumes of Tyrant Media Guide stuff from the back of Tyrant, right?
Oh, sweet.
Including my article on the worst dinosaur movies. So if you guys want to know what I think the worst dinosaur movies are, Paleopop Volume 1, Carnosaur Cineas, Quit Your Bitching. This is my list of the worst dinosaur movies.
Nice.
I've got essays in here about dinosaur comics, dinosaur movies, dinosaur TV shows. My friend John Harrison, who's a film historian in Australia, did a terrific article and interview about the dinosaur attacks trading cards that Topps put out. So a lot of cool stuff in here, and I'll be continuing that series. Awesome. I also contribute regularly to an online zine called Bare Bones. And in this particular issue, I have an entire article on the monsters of the Jungle Gym movies from the 1950s.
Nice.
Nothing but impeccable taste for me, right? Jungle Gym, dinosaur movies, it's all in here. I'm also doing a lot of commentary work for a number of 4K and Blu-ray labels. Most recently, I have commentary tracks on the 1974 British horror movie Frightmare. I did commentary tracks for Dan Curtis's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde with Jack Palance, which is in a box set Kino Cult put out called Dan Curtis Monsters, Dan Curtis being the producer of Dark Shadows. Commentary track on the Portrait of Dorian Gray from 1973 in the box set Dan Curtis Gothics. And Tim Lucas and I did video bonus features for Ilsa, Tigress of Siberia, and Ilsa, the Wicked Warden, two of the most obscene drive-in movies of the 1970s. So
Yes.
Awesome.
So anyway, a lot of new work out there, and the big one, of course, being the Tyrant crowdfunder that we've been talking about here today. That's
Sweet.
what I'm really excited about.
That's the big
Can't
one.
wait for that. Yeah. Well, Steve, thank you so much for coming on. Let's see how everyone's artwork came out. Mafu,
this is amazing.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I finished that guy up.
It's badass, man.
That was fun. Straight to brush with a little bit of pen work in there.
You guys should see if Jim Rugg and Chris Stevens would run these in the Complete Tyrant, because
I mean, I don't know if this needs to see print. This is pretty psychotic, but we got.
Hey, psychotic is my middle name, man.
I think it's the first and last time I've drawn Barney. I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. Barney's
amazing.
bib is like the best.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Barney, psychotropic mushrooms, angry Steve Bissette, and a shout out to Spider Baby Graphics.
I'm rarely angry. It's nice seeing me pissed off.
You upset about deadline, Steve? Back in the
That's really awesome.
Work for hire. Work for hire.
All right,
Jimmy, what you got?
Oh, that's gorgeous.
You rock that.
It's so good.
Nice.
That's really great, but that's a really goofy volcano in the background there, Jim.
You know what? The oldest drawing that I have is a dinosaur drawing I did when I was 6, and that's how I would draw volcanoes.
Oh, that's great. Oh man, that's excellent. Did you ever build your own little plaster volcano where you'd put the rocket engine in the tube and light it?
I never did that. I built volcanoes, but I never had anything to like make them go off. You know, like in movies and TV, you'll see them mix, I don't know, baking soda and Coke or something and make them erupt.
Right. The pyrotechnics with some red oatmeal in there for lava. So yeah.
Yeah, I never went that far with it, but I did do some paper mache volcano kind of stuff.
Beautiful, man.
Beautiful.
Jimmy, you got anything to plug? Jim Rugg?
Oh, Jim, you're working with a new distributor setup. Talk about that before we're off of here.
Yeah, powerpulpcomics.com. 40 self-publishers are on there. You can order work from any of us. It's all shipped from the same place, so you only pay shipping once. If you order $200, shipping's free. We did it to reach stores, of course, so we have a 50% off, wholesale for retailers. And it's a wide variety of work. And Rick Veitch is the most recently announced member. So we will soon you'll be able to pick up Rick Veitch's work. Oh, looks like it's already on there.
Yeah, look at that. Oh my God, it's everything.
Great job, Jamie.
So it's a growing distributor. We've only been around since May of last year, so not even a year yet. And it's pretty exciting. Distribution's a big part of even content at this point, and I feel like Power Pulp's pretty great. Most of the proceeds all go back to the original artist. We kind of work together to help promote Power Pulp comics, so it's not just making the comics and saving on shipping, but hopefully it's a whole distribution system that'll just get stronger and stronger as we continue to move forward.
Yeah, man.
Sweet.
I love that model. That's awesome.
Jim,
Yeah,
I should ask, because I see Dummy, which is one of my favorite current zines, those first two items on there. Should I be putting the Paleo Pop zines in the mix with this, or is that not comics enough for it?
You know what, Steve? I don't know the answer to that. I will find out the answer though and let you know, because I would love to have Steve Bissette as part of Power Pulp Comics. So,
well, my ultimate goal. I mean, I'm learning the ropes on print on demand. So my ultimate goal later, by the end of the year, is to start collecting some of my old comic work. And I'll never be up to the level Rick's at, but starting to put out some of my unseen or long out of print work as print on demand, and Power Pulp is one of the reasons I'm thinking about getting into it this year. So
Yes, please do. We can talk more about that offline. But definitely I think that there's a fit for you here. And it's been amazing watching different people join up. You know, like Dummy is one of my favorite zines. So whenever John Kelly
It's
came on
great.
board,
Oh yeah.
you know, it's just really exciting. And I mean, we all are familiar with self-publishing and what that offers. I think it's the best comics being made today. So to have a resource like this, where's it been my whole life? You know,
Man,
as a fan and as a maker.
more power to you. This is the kind of thing that Rick and his partner Steve Connolly have been talking about. This should exist, and you guys are doing it. So this is fantastic.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and I think Jim Mahfood, we may have some of his books on here one of these days. Is that true, Jim?
Yes, yes. I have been in touch with them, and I told them after I fulfill the Arachnid Enforcer Kickstarter, I'll get in touch with them just because I can't take anything else on right now, even
Right,
like administrative stuff. So I'm going to fulfill Arachnid, and then I have like my library of create your own stuff that I can. Yeah.
Oh, I should also mention Jeff Ewan just posted something in the chat. I do have new sketchbooks out. They're also available on Amazon. There's a sketchbook called Thoughtful Creatures. That's the first monster sketchbook that we put out. That's available via Amazon print on demand everywhere in the world. The second one is called Brooding Creatures. And those are available in black and white paperback or color paperback or color hardcover editions. And I'm doing those with my friend Mark Mastel, who's a cartoonist, graphic novelist, and author. He's doing the design and the curating on those sketchbooks. And in December, we put out a brand new sketchbook called In the Mood ... for monsters. That just came out in December, and that's the most ambitious of the sketchbooks because it not only includes monster sketches, but it also has my essay on why I draw monsters, why it's important to me. And Mark and I are going to continue with the sketchbook series. They don't sell particularly well, but they're a lot of fun to put together, and I'm really proud of the work being out there. And it has my most current, you know, drawing material in there. Each of those sketchbooks has stuff like from whatever the year of publication is. So that's where you'll find a lot of the, you know, my freehand sketch work. It's in there. So using all media as well.
Sweet.
Fantastic. Support the work, you guys. Thank you, guys, Jim and Steven.
Thanks
for joining
so
us.
much. And
yeah, thank you guys so much.
You guys are
thanks
amazing.
for having us on.
Yeah. And thanks for everybody who watched.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good one.
Yeah. All right, Jamie takes out. Peace.
Bye-bye.